dude, he scored 2 goals today in the final. Uh, I was completely blown away. I mean, his positioning is always pretty good, and he doesn't get beat off the ball a lot because he's quick. He recovers quickly,
Mm-hmm.
but like
He's not a
lately
big
in
dude.
lately in school ball, he's getting bigger. He's about 5'3" now. Um, but in school ball, he's been shooting from like distance, you know.
Mm.
And so today he was just like, "Screw it, I'll take some shots from distance." The first one scooted through the keeper's hands. Um, so better to be lucky than good sometimes. But the second one was like beautiful, low screamer, right at the post, hit the post and off the post and in. It was a beautiful shot.
Nice.
It was nicely placed, and he told me after the game was over that it was what do you call it, booty. I think he was saying that the goal was ass.
Well, yeah, that's shifted to being a really positive thing now with
Yeah,
the
I think
youths.
yeah, I don't know. It was a nice finish for me, but anyway, yeah, beautiful day today. Just a beautiful
Mm.
day. I couldn't fucking believe it.
Looks like we got Stephen Hawking here joining us.
Yeah, he's pretending that he's barely alive, but he is. He's like Cameron from Ferris Bueller. I think all we got to do is steal his dad's car, and we'll be just perfect. It'll be perfect. Anyway, let's record a podcast. I guess I'm going to drive the car today since Steve is on his deathbed.
He's not looking alive.
Boy, I keep hitting that wrong button, man.
What time is it?
It's time for Rick at Spursy.
Hey, it's Wicked Spursy. Today you have Nikki Winks and Steven, who is barely alive. I think he's I don't even know. Are you going to stay awake for this, Steve?
Oh yeah, I'll stay awake. I don't know. I got like an ear infection or something.
There's always something, isn't there?
It's that time of year. All those kid germs. Nick knows all about it.
Dude, I have pretty much lasted the last year and a half to 2 years on round the clock Sudafed, as well as developing an addiction to Afrin nasal spray because it just keeps it going. And coffee. I drink about 64 ounces of coffee a day.
Yeah, I had 1 cup this morning, and usually I have 2, but I couldn't even finish my first,
Mm.
which
Happy
was
Sunday.
not a great way to start the day.
IV drip of that.
Well,
And apparently I can't take Tylenol anymore, or else I'll make myself even more autistic.
Steve, at this point, it's a plus. It's a plus. With any kind of spectrum disease comes a superpower.
I'm
And
waiting
yours is
for
just getting
mine.
angry at Tottenham Hotspur, I think. So,
It's pretty good at it.
but anyway, yeah. Today we're in the middle of a international break. There's been some, I guess, fun games to watch. Got to watch that Irish keeper Kelleher save that penalty against Ronaldo. So that must have been a thrill of his lifetime, even though they still got beat. But you get to see that. We get to see some teams putting 10 goals on people. I think Cyprus put 4 goals out today, which was kind of cool, or yesterday.
Yo, the Faroe Islands, they're on a tear lately too.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I guess World Cup qualifiers can be fun. I don't know. It's just not for me. Just not for me.
It is more fun than this ridiculous Nations League stuff, though.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess we just lead right into the podcast. Today, because we're on that international break, we decided that we're not going to do a Spurs centric kind of podcast. We're going to talk about kind of the state of U.S. soccer, from the men's and women's national team to all the way through, the youth ranks and where we are in our own professional leagues. So, I mean, this is the point where probably some of you are just going to tune right out because you don't want to listen to talk about U.S. soccer. But I mean, there is some pretty interesting stuff to talk about. So I think we should get right into it because I know that Nick has like an actual a feeling about the U.S. men's national team, and where they are in comparison to where we think they should be or where they even were at the last World Cup. So, Nick, getting into this, like the U.S. team has had its ups and downs, right? We had the Landon Donovan years, right, and the Clint Dempsey years, uh, you know, and then we thought like, we had a young Christian Pulisic come in and players like Weston McKennie and Serginho Dest coming in. Tim Mareem as a youngster was great. I mean, he continues to be pretty serviceable, for the position that he's playing. But I
Even though
mean,
he's like 60 years old.
and he's still out there captaining the team. But I mean, and now we have a little bit of a youth movement, with Gio Reyna and Fuller and Balogun and Pepe and guys like that. So we saw a U.S. team that made the quarters right for the last World Cup, and they made it out of their bracket, which was a tough group. Um, Iran wasn't a pushover, right? And they had England too, and then they drew with England, who arguably should have won the entire tournament. But comparatively, where do you think that the United States team is right now? Because we have Pochettino, as our coach. Is this a Pochettino style team? Is he still out there looking for what he wants, or are we just like being treated to Pochettino, trying to give some guys a chance, and the real team is going to show up when it needs to?
Well, that's a great question. I'll start with, l'équipe canadienne est meilleure. They're better, the Canadian team. The no, yes, but I mean, we know Pochettino and I think it's great that we're talking about his connection with Spurs and everything. I think if the tournament were not being hosted currently, 2026 in the States and Mexico and Canada, and without an expanded field, I don't think our team even qualifies for if it was a standard World Cup with no expansion teams or anything. I don't even think we qualify right now. And I know how I feel like about our team as a whole, but like our starters, like our core, like 4 or 5 to 6 guys are great. Like you really have some generational talent who are arguably some of the best players that this country's ever produced. And that's it. Like I think when we see those guys not playing, so there's like a double-edged sword because you've got, Pulisic and some of the other guys that it's now being talked about that there's no competition, so they don't give a shit. So they're like, well, I'm going to start anyway to, open the tournament. So what does it matter if I really try? Where then you've got the England team where you're seeing some of these young 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds trying to push for the team who start for Premier League teams and are not even guaranteed a spot on the 20 some odd man roster. And the same is true for France, Spain, Belgium, Netherlands, Mexico, like Argentina, Colombia, Brazil, like Korea, like all these other teams have depth that we just don't have. And so I think this is probably our last chance in a while to make a decent run in a tournament. And by decent run, I think we make it to like the round of 16 is like where we probably meet our end. Whether it's because that core group of guys is just gassed at that point, one or two of them is out on a yellow, too many yellows. Pochettino doesn't have any answers of what to do when he's, we're probably gonna, when we get to that round of 16, at one point or another, we're gonna play an African team, which has always been really challenging for us. We're gonna play a European giant who's probably gonna kick our teeth in. Like it's going to be tough. So I think this is our last chance for a long time. And I think part of what you sent us around some topics for future conversation tonight, we could talk a little bit more why I think this is sort of the last chance for a while. But I think if those guys, that core group can stay healthy, I could see us being in the final 16. But that's it. I think the dream ends there for the U.S. men's national team. Maybe that's as far as we make it. I think Canada, again, I'm not, my bias towards their team, but I think they have enough depth and talent across the board and consistency. They also seem like they want to actually try, which is something that the U.S. men's team, and I know Pochettino's trying to get that out of the guys with competition, but I don't know if they're buying into it or not. From recent results, not so much. But I don't know. Steve, what do you think? Barely alive. I just saw my chat GPT.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. For me, it's just there's a complacency there. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of these guys, I think they get, kind of bought into their own hype. And I mean, watching them, there are times where it looks like you've got players who just want to do the individual brilliance and try to win that way. But, soccer's a team game. And, if you can't bring your teammates in, if you can't elevate them, you're not going to succeed. You can't have one good player on a team and expect to do well. That just doesn't work ever. It never has for any country ever. But the last game against Ecuador, you could tell that there were people who were trying to make an impression, maybe a little bit unlucky in some situations. But oftentimes it's just efforts that are few and far between. There just isn't enough to go around, from a squad perspective, right? Like you said, you've got maybe 4 or 5 guys who, should absolutely be starting. But then outside of that, it's like a huge drop off, right? And you see that with some of the call ups where you get, just every once in a while, the most random guys. Oh, well, we haven't seen, so and so in a while. Let's give him a shot. Oh, this person's been doing okay in the championship. Let's give him a try. And, that doesn't really breed consistency either. And I do think that you're, again, 100% agreed after this cycle, once we start getting guys like Pulisic, falling off their peak and not performing as well, I don't necessarily know that there's going to be enough coming in behind to make up for that, right? And honestly, I do think that there's a political aspect of that as well. That's maybe people don't want to accept, but I'm just gonna say, when you're scaring away some of your best, potentially best avenues for talent, maybe deporting them and getting them to go away, you're not really helping your cause. And thinking about the World Cup coming up, just the whole thing seems like such a clusterfuck as a whole, that I don't know that, even though it's going to be in the US and it should be a platform for the US team to show off and show people that we can compete, I just have this awful feeling it's going to have the inverse effect, where people are just going to look at it and go, well, that sucked. And, it just sets soccer back in the States, a decade or more.
Well,
The
yeah,
good news
getting
is none of us can afford to watch it in person, so we can't even go see the U.S. team play.
which I think could be another whole podcast altogether. Like,
Yeah.
there's not going to be anybody who's going to be able to afford to watch it. I mean,
You'll get influencers who can afford, but they don't know what they're watching. They don't understand it. They don't appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, so actually that's a good point because you just made a good point, Steve, about how it's going to affect the game, down the line. And obviously, the women's team has also seen maybe not necessarily a drop off, but a catching up of some of the larger soccer playing nations in the world, who generally would focus on the men's game. And the U.S. women have and had dominated it a, quite a bit in the past, right? So, um, and we're seeing a little bit of either a dropping off or a catching up of the women's national team. But I guess the next thing is like, how is this affecting U.S. soccer down the line, all the way down to like the youth ranks? Because we know that right now in the U.S. there is, and there's been lots of stuff written about it in the Athletic and some of the bigger publications about how the U.S. soccer system, the club soccer system, and it provides sometimes a roadblock to a lot of the talent that can come out of the United States. I mean, I guess I am part of the problem because I pay into it. Um, but like, how do it's very, very hard to find quality coaching um, at a volunteer rate, right? You All the good coaches are going to these places where they can make money doing their job coaching, right? Some of them use it as a jumping off point. Some of them might use it as a post college job or in college job, right? So a lot of these good coaches are coming out of those club systems too. So I'd like to talk to Steve about this because Steve has a youngster who is going into that area, right? And he's going into that kind of pay to play system. Um, how do you feel so far? Because Far Post, I feel like is one of those clubs that, yes, it's one of the bigger clubs, but we do a lot as the parents who can afford to send our kids through this system, do a lot to help some of the kids through the scholarship program. And every single team at Far Post has a kid on scholarship, at least one player on scholarship every single year. And we do a lot of fundraising to be able to do that for those kids who cannot do that. And we welcome in as many kids as we can get, but still you have that pay to play system in it. And it's not just soccer. It's happening in baseball now. It's been happening in basketball for a lot of years and hockey for a lot of years. So what is your take so far on it? And where do you think the roadblocks are for players who maybe don't have the means?
I have two thoughts. And I'm approaching this as both a parent, like you said, with a child entering it, but also as a referee who has seen multiple different clubs at different age levels in the youth system lately. There's two things, right? You're paying, which is by definition a barrier for a lot of people, right? But like you said, it's the only way that you can really get somebody who knows what they're doing, who's got the, maybe the passion, the experience, the knowledge to set these kids up for success. There are also organizations that offer alternative means to get young players who don't have, the funds necessarily to still get out there and perform in organized sports. But again, a lot of those are volunteers. Maybe they know soccer. Maybe they, watch and follow along just casually. But oftentimes, they're just some kid's parent who, drew the short straw and has to coach the kids for a while. And there's a huge gap in skill between the kids who play for the, pay to win clubs versus the free volunteer organizations. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the reality of it. It's great that they have options, but the options, there's a gap in quality there for sure, that just isn't great. But the piece I will say that I think gets understated a lot, and I'm sure Nick might have some thoughts on this as well. It's the parental behavior that you see with a lot of these kids. You see some parents who think their kid is fucking messy. They're not. Your kid is not the next Lionel Messi. It's just that's not. They're good for their team, but that they're not at the same level, not even close. But then you get these parents and sometimes even the coaches who hype these kids up into thinking that they're great, that they can do everything, that they're the best out there. And then you see, and I've seen this in games, you see the kids, they miss a goal, they don't connect with their pass, they get beaten on the dribble, and it has a psychological effect to them too, where they start to get upset with themselves and they start to feel, kind of down and defeated. So yes, there's the pay to play aspect, which is a huge barrier. But I think even within that, you also have parents that, provide maybe an unhealthy view for some of these young players that can make it honestly even more of a challenge for them to reach the heights that maybe they would if they were nurtured a little bit more differently.
Nick, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it now because you may actually be entering this system. I mean, luckily, like Milton has a pretty robust, your town, has a pretty robust youth kind of recreational setup, as does the town of Colchester. But at the same time, watching those teams and those players play against and playing against like my son's far post team, it just doesn't compare.
Yeah.
And it may be something like it may just be the smallest thing. It could be, those clubs they pull from towns, all over the place. And they're just basically getting the best of the best, or they're not. You have Colchester or Milton who has those towns to draw on, right? So they're not drawing kids from Shelburne, they're not drawing kids from Burlington, from Georgia or the islands, right? They're just
And
drawing
we're a
kids from
small
their town.
sample compared
It's
to
a smaller sample, right?
like Far Post, who would probably rock a regular grassroots local club from Colchester or Milton or Georgia, goes to play in Boston, where there's 9 far further posts that are like, your parents are paying $30,000 tuition for their kid to go to this camp or program or what have you. And I mean, I think it's not just soccer. I think it's just a problem with U.S. sports in general. I mean, you see, it's interesting because you've got like the FA over in the UK, which is more of the Football Association, for those who don't know what that is, where they're just sort of this governing body, except there's no like big cuts of anything. They get a little bit of sales and stuff, but whereas in like we have also universities and obviously professional leagues that just they don't need to provide the same level of like camps and like down the ladder or down the pyramid that the Premier League clubs or the Eredivisie clubs or La Liga or whatever it is that, or like Ajax is a good example of like they know that they throw all their youth development funds pays the bills. Like that's what just keeps the ship going. They're going to find a young kid in one of their camps. They're going to spend $2 million coaching him over the course of 12 years, and they're going to sell him for 25 million or 45 because it's Premier League tax. That just funded your camp for the next 10 years. It's the same with AAU basketball in our country, where kids there's these barriers, whether it's not just the tuition, but then there's the gear they have to purchase, the clothes that all matches, the uniforms, the transportation, the hotels, the food, and that's like Steve said. I mean, that's a privilege and a barrier inherently is the finances. So what that does is you're not getting, you'll never find a Messi in our country because that kid won't have the resources to ever be found by the current structure and the current system. And the same is true for basketball. What are the odds we get another LeBron? Like, probably not. You know, it's disheartening in that it really has just become in our country. I mean, even our college, I brought up the colleges and universities that are really just sports franchises that dabble in education. Um, where, Oxford and Cambridge and, they don't have a D1 rugby team that brings in $1 trillion a year in profits with a 150,000 seater stadium. And the same is true. They don't have a football league there for soccer, soccer, football.
Well, neither do I mean, if you're looking at neither do the Ivies. I mean,
no, they don't. I mean, but they still
and
they don't
the
offer
Vanderbilts and like if you're looking at the Vanderbilts
Yeah.
and like Stanford has good sports, but like
Yeah.
the higher up universities, yes, they don't. That's correct. But they also don't have a university system. You're right. They don't have a university system in the UK like we
That is
have.
another barrier to like for, and then you throw in the MLS's structure, which is like run basically like the NBA, MLB, NHL, the NFL, where drafting kids at 22 years old. How old's Mikey Moore? 17, playing for. He just got a hat trick the other day in a U20 match or U19. He wouldn't have to go play for a college team because he would have been found on. He was when he was like 7. Same with Kane. Harry Winks was found by Spurs. He was like 6 years old, and they were able to sell him and get James Madison as well out of the deal. But our structure, aside from the finances and the insane parents, is just it is a larger. No offense, it's not you. It's just I know, like, I mean, I deal with it.
I mean, I do play
standpoint.
into it. I do play into it because,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to spend money. We're taking a trip to Holland, right? In the spring. And I think this is an opportunity for kind of an eye opening. Cause like like you said, when we play in those tournaments and stuff, we go down to Rhode Island, we go down to, and we're playing in Boston, right outside of Boston. We're playing kids from the bigger cities, right? And we're competitive. I will say that our team through the years has gotten more and more competitive. And last year in U13, we were either in a semifinal or a final in every single tournament we were in. All 4 or 5 tournaments we were in, we won one of the tournaments. But we go down south, we go into Virginia, we go to a regional tournament, go to Virginia, go to West Virginia, go to Pennsylvania to play, and it becomes even harder, right? So we're in an area up here, so we're already behind the 8 ball because all of those teams that we would play from down south and stuff are playing all year long outside. We're playing futsal on smaller fields, and while we're better at close control than some of these teams, they have kids who are out there running. But that's beside the point when we're talking about the European system versus the US system, where my son, like I said, is going to be going to Holland. He's going to be training at Ajax, and then he's going to be training at PSV Eindhoven, and then they are going to be playing games against the youth. So they'll be training with those kids in those youth academies, and then they go and they play games, and they'll do some training with Feyenoord and AZ, right? So they'll get a feel and they'll get that experience of what it's like for those kids over there who are essentially being developed to be sold. They're being those kids are being bred like horses, like racehorses, I guess.
Yeah.
And our kids are, they're given that opportunity to see. Um, but you make a really good point about being drafted and how the MLS has kind of that closed system that they don't have in Europe, right? Where and this will bring us into our next subject because the state of the pro game in the United States is completely different. I remember I was having a conversation with Ricky from the Fighting Cock. We were just kind of going back and forth, um, just chatting about um, how the U.S. closed system works, um, because he was genuinely interested in what Vermont Green was doing because they hear that stuff over there. They hear about the fourth tier, teams playing, and he just couldn't understand how the soccer pyramid worked because there's no pro and rel, right? So these kids get to, and we'll start to talk about this. These kids get into a pre-professional league like the USL2. You're playing for Vermont Green, you're playing for Ballard FC, you're playing for FC Motown or whatever, Seaboats United, right? Who are also, for some reason, also have an MLS Next set up too. But when you're playing in those low leagues like that, these are kids that are coming out of college as pre-professional. They're coming out of college. They're trying to make their name so that they can get quote unquote drafted, right? Um, you look at players like Reed Fisher, who was highly successful, getting drafted at 19, 20 years old to Toronto. Nate Jones, 23 years old, 22 years old, getting drafted. But then you have the Yaniv Bazzinis of the world, who amazing soccer players in the United States can't get drafted because he went to UVM for an education. Right? He went to play soccer, but he was also there for an education and got his master's degree while he was there. It stayed with Vermont Green for 3 years, and because of the age that he came out, there's not even a lower league team who wants to touch him, because of his age.
And that's one thing that I will say is sorry to cut like
No, no,
the there's that like not so terrible part of our system is that because you see now like what teams are doing in like the Premier League, like Crystal Palace is one of the I think the first team they just announced that they've got a like you didn't make it kind of like we're going to help you get your life in order so that you can go do something else since you're not going to make it in football. But like our system where there is that dabbling in education as well, where how many of them actually make it, and even if they get drafted into the MLS, what's the base salary for a rookie? 50 grand before taxes, like 60 grand before taxes, maybe, or maybe that's after. I don't know. Either way, they're not making Yamin Lamal money over in Barcelona, um, and they're not making even what Mikey Moore's making at Spurs at 17 years old. They're but we at least our system in a way, not the best way, in a kind of a fucked up way, sort of at least gives them a bit of a cushion. We're like, study accounting so that you can like I don't know, go work at a car dealership and not be broke and like
right.
struggle with your mental health and then possibly make really bad decisions.
Well,
Where
this is
like the
true for
Premier League,
soccer, Nick.
yeah, and like the Premier
This is
League,
true for
like I think
soccer.
it
This
was,
is true for skiing,
yeah,
for women's sports, right, in college.
oh
But
yeah,
with the NIL now, it's again another whole podcast with the
for sure,
NIL. Like the football players, the basketball players, it's a completely different world, right?
for sure.
So, I mean, let's ask Steve, like, because the MLS system, that closed system that only allows for there's nothing in the MLS system that really rewards or punishes teams for putting money into their players, putting money into into their clubs. It's that billionaire system that we see that like Todd Bowley's trying to run at Chelsea, right? That billionaire system that Todd Bowley's running at at in the LA Dodgers system, right? Like the minor league baseball is starting to fall away, right? Um, they had to contract a bunch of teams, or very own Lake Monsters, being one of them. But like, so there is no feeder systems anymore, and they're finding international players, that kind of stuff. How bad is a closed system for a sport like soccer, and how does it affect the players in the United that are in the United States that want to try and make that leap up into that league?
I don't necessarily think it's impacting the players as much as it does the audience, right? The reception, um, just in general, right? Like you go to Vermont Green, and there's no promotion relegation right now that they have to worry about. But you look at the atmosphere that we have there, and it is a completely different thing than if you were to go. I mean, Nikki Winks and I went to an Impact game over the summer together, and I would have rather have been at Vermont Green. Right, the atmosphere was just a whole other thing. There might have been more people, sure, but it's not the same. And I do think that a lot of the time it's a capitalist system, right? They're stuck looking at their teams as passive income, and there's no risk, right? If they don't perform well, oh well, better luck next time. Um, and it's that kind of attitude that I think, especially the passionate fan groups really get frustrated. Um, I've seen just on social media, on Reddit, different fan groups in like Colorado, right? The Rapids there have had some issues with their owners, and how things are done, with their team. And it's not something you necessarily see over in Seattle, where they have a really strong fan base and they've got really involved owners. But when you've got,
Atlanta, yep.
yeah, when you end up in a situation where like these shitty owners they're not going anywhere, right? Like they're just going to stick around because they're just going to keep earning the same amount of money, and they've got the funds to prevent any push towards a pro relegation structure. So it's just there's no incentive for them to pursue it. And in my mind, it just creates an atmosphere that's much more stale than you might see at a more grassroots level, or in a pro rel system where there's something to play for, right? Like if you're not the best team in the league, if you're not competing for the league title, if you're not in a big cup competition, there's no point, right? So you kind of just go out there, you play, maybe you get a couple hundred people show up to cheer you on, but at the end of the day, the atmosphere in my mind is a completely different thing. It's not necessarily the players' fault, and I don't necessarily believe that it impacts them. I mean, you look at MLS, you still got guys going up against, Lionel Messi and co, which is a big challenge. And they perform, a lot of times they do step up and do well. The problem that I have with the players in this system is that it oftentimes has a false sense of security for them, where they think that they can perform at a higher level because they are, their team's been the best in the league 3-4 years running. We can make the leap over into Europe. And it's just not the same level. It's a completely different ball game there, right? I mean, how many goalkeepers has the U.S. sent over to England, and then their careers have just imploded, right? Slolina has done that. Zach Steffen's done that. Matt Turner. These are players who had high confidence. They were performing well in MLS, but they're just not at the same level in Europe. And to me, it's not because of a pro rel thing. To me, it's just because they're big fish, small pond, right? And because there's no pro rel, that there's just no influx of new teams for them to play against. They can't challenge themselves in different ways. And so they have that confidence, which great, especially as a goalkeeper, right? You need that confidence to perform. But if you're not competing, meaningful way, it's again, big fish, small pond. As soon as you go out into a broader arena, you're just not going to be at that same level. And it sucks, but yeah, like I said, there's no incentive for the owners within MLS to do anything different about it because most of them just don't give a shit.
And they've done nothing to help themselves. Like to piggyback off of that and to go back, like when we went to the CF Montreal game, like I've gone to a lot of matches up there over the years, and the atmosphere varies depending on who they're playing. If it's Toronto versus, that's always a big one, or uh, when Messi and them came to town. But like the other problem, I think, which is gonna probably, I got your list of bullets up. I don't know if I'm hurting the transitions or anything, but they they had the biggest star in the world, MLS, and now arguably like the second in like the number one star in Asia, playing at the same time in the MLS, and they put the whole league behind a fucking paywall with Apple instead of saying we're gonna throw this shit on CBS, Fox, whatever, and just get this out there so the popularity and viewership increases so that the league can grow and people will want to go to the games, which will then maybe there will be more talk of like wanting to see promotion and relegation, but then go thinking about like watching Vermont Green, watching some of these other lower level teams selling out every single game with wait lists to get on season tickets. It's no surprise that some investors were like, well, fuck. That's where the money is, because that's where I don't have to pay $250 million expansion fee to then build a fucking stadium and have, all this other shit when I can have a tier 2 team that might have relegation below it, but every game is sold out. Every shirt and jerseys on back order. The players cost less. Like, I don't have to deal with Apple TV and all their other bullshit. And the MLS is very weird governance body and how they do, which is very different than even like some of the other professional teams and leagues in our country. So just a thought.
I have a thought. Hey, Mike, what you drinking?
Steve, I thought you would never ask.
Is it a bottle of NyQuil? Because I would love a bottle of NyQuil.
Not a bottle of NyQuil. I mean, it might end up being. I don't know what we got going here. I just saw this today, and I thought it was pretty neat looking. And I don't do a lot of other beers outside of like the IPAs and shit. But this is called Study Hall. It's a maple coffee amber ale from Burlington Beer Company.
Ooh.
Yeah, Burlington Beer. Who? Holy shit! I went looking for a beer today, and I was looking through Burlington Beer, and I was looking through Foam. Holy shit! This smells great. I was looking through the Foam beers. There must have been 15 different beers, all IPAs and double IPAs. One pale ale. I was looking for a stout or something dark. It's that type of time of season. You want a dark, you want an amber, you want a porter, a stout, something like that. Something, as it gets cooler outside, it gets a little, beers get a little bit darker, a little bit heavier. I looked for a couple of different wee heavies. Wasn't finding any of those. But this beer smells really fucking good. Maple coffee amber ale. Now this beer comes in at 5.5%, I think. It smells like coffee. It smells kind of like candy. And you get like a maple. You can smell the maple syrup. It smells like breakfast almost. I don't know if you get that like coffee and pancakes, with maple syrup. But but amber ales are typically, you can see the redness of an amber ale, right? The dark, rich amber color. They use darker malts. They use caramalts. They're generally lightly or hopped than your pale ales and your IPAs are. They're not intended to be like super bitter beers. They're intended to be smooth. They're intended to be drinkable. They're intended to be a little bit light, um, but heavier with the mouth feel. I guess if you're explaining it that way. Um, this really smells like a breakfast beer or a dessert beer. Really, it just smells like coffee and candy. But let's get into it.
And to be clear, that's not an IPA. Could it be an IPA?
No, not
Should it be
close.
an IPA?
Dude, this beer is really good. Oh my god. I'm gonna save this. You guys gotta taste this. So this beer is outrageous. It tastes like candy.
Like candy?
Like candy. It's
Buddy,
wild. It's
Halloween's
it's
around the corner.
it's sweet but not overpowering. The coffee is right there on the nose and in the back. Um, it has kind of the hallmarks of that amber ale. It's a little bit heavier on the carbonation than I would have thought, but yeah, man, it's wildly drinkable, wildly sweet, but not overpoweringly so. I really enjoy this beer, and you can really taste the maple, which Burlington beer. I don't give them credit a lot because I don't like a lot of their beers. But this beer is really fucking good, and I would probably put it on the higher end if I were going for it. So guess away, fellas, guess away.
My guess is ready.
Same. It's out of 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of 5. Okay, this beer's getting a
I'm
four
sending
point
it
one.
to the text, right?
Damn it. I went too high.
You went too high. Oh, you were right there though, man. You're always right in and around.
Well,
Whoa, 4.7, Nick. That's talking about like we're talking about Musa Dembele numbers.
You are selling it, man.
No, it's a 4.1, but like it's a really fucking good beer. Anything over a 4 is a fantastic beer, right? It's a really fucking good beer. Um, so yeah, I would suggest if you get the chance, um, yeah, the Maple Coffee Amber Ale Study Hall from Burlington Beer Company. Mark it down at a 4.1. And this has been Hey Mike, what you drinking?
pretty damn good.
Yeah, man. So moving along, um, I did want to get like into talking about where we go next with U.S. soccer. Um, now we have the USL introducing promotion and relegation. They have um, they've decided to go along with this in the 27-28 season, and that will bring along with it an upper tier that is going to quote unquote compete with the MLS. Um, we did get like in the USL, we have the USL Championship, which is currently the highest tier, which is generally considered a second tier to the MLS. We have the USL one, and then we have, excuse me, the USL two, which is the pre professional league, um, and then we have the USLW and the USL Super League, which are the women's leagues. The Super League is the professional league, which is tier two women's, and then the USLW, which the Vermont Green will be joining, not this coming season, but the season after, um, as the pre professional league. So on the back of that, the USL just got a huge buy-in from Bell Tower Partners, which is run by Kaesung Lee, and he is the former CEO of the Carlyle Group. So these are, and this is completely Brian's background, and I wish he had been able to be here with us tonight to talk about this. Um, so the league has termed it a strategic investment. Um, into the USL itself. Now, the big question coming out of this is that because he has been made the executive VP or something of the USL. There's nothing for me that really says anything more than these guys are going to come in and it's a real estate investment for them. They're going to they're going to help build some stadiums. They're not here to solidify the league. They're not here to help um, any teams that are struggling to stay above water. They're going to let those teams die, and they'll have investment from other people. Maybe not billionaires, but multimillionaires who are going to come in and buy teams. They're going to, like, a lot of these people with money now see that the U.S. soccer is growing, and I did want to talk about this because as much as we talked about the decline of the men's national team and even the women's national team and the barriers that are set up from the pay to play system in the youth ranks, we look at the USL, who's doing something a little different. They're going into markets that are kind of mid-level markets. They're building clubs there. And they've been building for quite some time now. And now they're looking to promotion and relegation. So they're going to have a premier division, right? So they'll have a premier division, championship division, and then a division 1 and division 2. Division 2 will not be a part of that pro rel system as we know it because they are a short season. But what do you guys see from this this capital investment? Do you believe that they're there to help this league along, or do you believe that they're there to make money and get out? Because there are a lot of new teams that are because of this that are popping up, buying in and building stadiums, especially in the USL 1, which is going to be the third tier, right? So once that happens, like Portland Hearts of Pine, right? They put significant money into a basically defunct stadium in Portland, and then you have some teams that are coming in that are going to be putting a lot of investment into their teams in League One, and for what it's worth, the Carlisle Group was involved in building that stadium in Rhode Island too, which is a beautiful stadium. If you guys haven't been there, I would I would vehemently suggest that you go there and watch a game, not just for the quality of the product that's on the field, but I think the USL has something going for it that the MLS doesn't, and I think this investment might help that along a little bit, but it's not going to save any teams. And I'll ask Nick first.
I mean, I think what it has going for it that the MLS doesn't, and I think Steve talked about this too, is that there's passion in USL versus in the divisions versus literally anything that is being put out by the MLS right now. You know, aside from maybe the Charlotte FC, you know, ultras dancing to Pepas with flares, there's like nothing that compares to seeing some of the stuff happening across the grassroots leagues and teams. You know, Vermont Green being one of those places that, you know, made international news, was just how fucking nuts that was. My hope is that they're not there to just make a quick buck and then bail. But my other hope is that they invest and hold, especially given the time too that we're in. Not everybody can afford to go to like whether it's good MLS games or other sports that are pricing people out. That it's almost like fill the void that like single A, double A, and triple A baseball was filling for a lot of people, that those have been gutted. And when you've got teams and leagues where you can go watch really high quality product for a fraction of the price and bring your family, the TV deals as well, if you could find a good partner in that it's free or just on streaming, like Vermont Green and some of the college games, they could, in theory, give the MLS a pretty good run for their money. And it's not going to be in viewership, it's going to be in attendance, and which is already kind of at a decline unless you're going to go watch Inter Miami play or LAFC play. I really hope that they invest and look to help build something that could compete, or not compete, but kind of be modeled after what every other country has built with their football associations. Now, granted, those are 150-year-old associations, so it's going to take time. But I also wonder what it's going to do financially with just the geography of our country, where promotion relegation, does that mean a team in Seattle now has to, or Portland or wherever, has to go play in the Division II and fly 4 times a year to Virginia or Alabama, which is going to be pretty fucking expensive. That's going to be a big hit, or is it going to be more regional, kind of the way that we didn't have to play a team from the West Coast, Vermont Green, until we were nearing the finals. And we didn't have to fly anywhere, so that was cool too.
Yeah, Steve. I think that this idea that soccer is becoming big in the United States, despite the closed system that the MLS has with let's call it what it is, billionaires who don't give a shit whether they win or lose, because that money's all going to be there. You already talked about it. And then you have the passion of the sport being bore out by teams like Vermont Green, by teams like Portland Hearts of Pine, by teams like Hartford Athletic right now, RIFC, who sold out their final game of the season in 10,000 seat stadium, beautiful, and again, beautiful stadium, and then really put it on. Like, this is a team who in their very first season went to the final in their first season. What are the pitfalls and perils that these teams in the USL have to look out for, when or the owners that they have to look out for when they're thinking big and thinking outside of the box, and bringing something that is typically a European model to the United States? What are the things that they have to think about? Because there is real consequence to, one, not putting money into your team, and two, not winning and maybe putting money into your team. What are the pitfalls and perils that they have to navigate to be able to, make the not just their teams successful, but the league successful on a whole?
I think they need to remember that the team on the pitch is going to change, right? It's going to, they'll have different players, and that's just natural, right? Like, Tottenham Hotspur right now is different than Tottenham Hotspur of 10 years ago, right? Teams are going to change, but the people, the community that supports them isn't, right? So you can't forget the people who are showing up, who are, spending their money on merch, who are cheering in the stands. Those are the ones. I don't think you want to completely ignore the team to get the fans on board, but you can't forget about them either as things get more expansive, as more money is introduced, as different systems of promotion and relegation are played out. You can't forget about the fans that show up. And I think one of the best things to look at is some of these, lower tier teams in the UK, right? Like every once in a while, I'll get, these videos of different chants, fan chants, and it's not so much winning and losing. Like I think one of the favorite ones that I saw was, and I wish I knew what team it was for, but it was a chant they had. We lose every week. You're nothing special. We lose every week. But you still have thousands of guys showing up and just enjoying it. They're getting in there. They're engaging in the banter, but they show up for their team. There was another one talking about how, oh yeah, we may suck, but we know how to ride a tractor. It's just silly shit like that. So if I think about Vermont Green in particular, because they're so close to home for us, yeah, invincible season last year. It's great to show up and watch them win. But I think if they're going to be long-term success, it's when they're losing and we're still showing up and we're talking about how great our maple syrup is, and just having the polite banter with the players. You get fucking Terry out there asking if they prefer soup, salad, or breadsticks. I mean, that's the sort of shit that you need to keep things going well, right? Like,
Terry, who dresses like a wizard.
Yeah, there's going to be hard times. There's going to be losses. We can't win every single year. I would love it if we did, but it's not feasible, right? There's going to be different players, different investment. Players will come in, different squads, different coaching staff. At some point there's going to be speed bumps. It's just, let's not forget about the guys who are showing up. Let's keep the atmosphere positive. And I say we being, speaking for the owners, let's make sure that the people who are showing up feel like, they're in a positive atmosphere, feel like that they're in a place that they can enjoy themselves. And I know that, we're fortunate that we have Vermont Green. I mean, the announcer, right? Tom is just such a fantastic person, a fantastic personality and presence to have in the stadium. It's just little things like that really, make a big difference in my mind. And if they want to be successful, each team needs to remember that there is a community behind them, and it's the community that's going to keep them going in the long run.
Absolutely. Nick, I'm going to give you the last question here. Because we've been talking about the what the heart of soccer is, right? We've been talking about all these different things that goes into it, whether it's the capitalist vision of the United States, right? um and that fucking spills over into European football too, professional European football. But it really in American sports, professional sports leagues, and all actually leagues in the United States, money is at the heart of everything, right? You don't do anything in the United States and be successful in your venture unless there's money behind it or there's money at the end of it, right? So we talk about soccer in a way always, like especially that now that we have our Vermont Green here and they're very successful due to the work of guys like Patrick Inferna and Sam Glickman and Matt Wolf, who is a legend in his own right for doing his day job, which is designing kits and redesigning a sports franchise, the look of a sports franchise, right? Even with the Minnesota Twins when he did that redesign, PSG and the like, Oakland Roots. So he's all over the place. But like these guys have brought in this idea of not just social justice and environmental justice, but like the idea that soccer is a community sport. Soccer, football, whatever you call it, wherever you're from, is a community sport, right? and Steve talked about it too, not forgetting that there's community behind it. How do we because I am no fan of the MLS. I used to be a fan of the MLS. I really got recharged in that when I went and saw a game. I went and saw the MLS All-Star game uh in Austin this year, and all the Austin, and I sat amongst the Austin Ultras, right? And I learned a little something for when I learned something from the capo of their group, so that I can do what I did, for the green this year, as the capo of their group. And um just talk a little bit about how community has to be able to keep this alive, um within that system where money is the manager.
I mean, soccer at its simplest form is beautiful. It's the beautiful game, and there's beautiful simplicity to it. It's people kicking a ball, and all of us having a lot of joy around it. It's, I think, keeping the sport and the game incredibly accessible for everyone and anybody who wants to enjoy it. Whether it's somebody as with a wheelchair that wants to come and watch a Vermont Green game, but struggles to be able to access some parts of the stadium. Now my daughter often walks around holding her shoe up, chanting "Shoes off for your boys in green." And you know what? Soccer gave that to us. Yeah, exactly. Like I thought, she was, Tottenham until she dies. Now she bleeds green. She's soccer gave that to us. And I think, money will always obviously be a problem in all things, not just sports, but in life. And we talk about that regularly outside of this. But I think, moving forward and how to keep this game enjoyable it's keeping it accessible. Fans having an opportunity to build a deep emotional connection with their team and their club and their players, whether it's having funny songs to sing about your guys, your team, all the way to Spurs having a song, about Harry Kane, he's one of our own, and um, and giving us, so many more opportunities to take our shoes off and start singing our lungs out. And that's how I hope it continues, whether it's a small little club like Vermont Green, igniting an entire state into a frenzy and of joy, or it's hopefully our men's national team actually like just somehow going on a tear and giving us something to be proud of. I think those are my hopes for it.
Dude, that sounds great. I know we're on time or we're overtime right now, and I appreciate that sentiment. Steve,
Steve's not topping that. I'm just saying.
no, that sounds like an amazing like ending soliloquy there by Nikki Winks.
You need some more Tylenol for that, man.
Speaking of Tylenol, it's time for Steve's final thought now. You're not topping that, but it is time for your final thought. And I'll let you either get in your final thoughts or give your final words. It's up to you.
Just final thought. I don't know. I don't have much of a thought. Just that when you're feeling like shit, you're having a sick day, and you see all the ridiculous crap that we've got to deal with, in this country, and it makes you wonder: am I going to have the ability to go to a doctor if I need to? Am I going to have insurance coverage? Am I going to have a vaccine if I need it? It's just ridiculous to think that we seem dead set on going backwards to such a high degree, and that there are people out there who are kind of cheering for it. It's in a lot of ways it's kind of heartbreaking. So to be able to come here and join you guys and listen to talks of, positive talks about community and the sport that we love, and to be able to share some more maybe positive, optimistic messaging. It's nice, right? It's a nice change of pace from the doom and gloom of reality. So I guess my final thought is, thanks to both of you for hopping on tonight and doing this and recording this show. It's been, considering I'd probably be passed out otherwise, it's the second best thing that I would have done with my night, which is high praise for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give my final thoughts here. We're seeing a lot of crazy shit happening in this country right now. And we keep talking about it. And I know that we are, of the Tottenham Hotspur podcast, the political podcast, Steve just talked about a lot of the shit that we don't know if we're going to wake up and have health insurance in the morning. We're going to have vaccines to be able to save our friends and family and our children ourselves. I want to talk about something that like we're getting very close to in this country, and I know that people think it's maybe hyperbole or a conspiracy or whatever it is from the left. I'm an unabashed leftist. I'm an unabashed anti-fascist, anti-communist, anti-monarchist. I'm a person who has democratic values. I honor and respect our democracy over anything, and our ability to have free speech and our ability to worship whatever gods we want to, if that's what we choose to live our lives the way we do. But first and foremost, I am an anti-fascist, and if they're gonna come after me for saying that on this fucking podcast, they can fucking come after me. Um, and Antifa is not a organization. It's not a thing. It's an idea. Anti-fascist. It's not a fringe idea of anything. It's a core tenet of our democracy. And to be democratic is to defend any kind of pluralism, and to reject the cult of one man or one party, which is Donald Trump. And I'm sorry, I have to come out here and say this right now, because I've been led to anger recently over this stuff. In I think that democracy only survives when the citizens, the people that are living under it, resist to the authoritarianism in all of its forms. And when we choose our courage over our comfort, go out there and support your neighbor, support the people that are being abducted on the streets, and put into detention centers. Support your community. We've been talking about community a lot. When you choose courage over comfort, truth over your tribe, like, and liberty over loyalty, like that's how we survive as a country. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and the past few days have kind of just led me to that. So again, I'm sorry that I'm bringing politics back into this, but we have to resist this administration at all costs and what it's doing to our country, and to make sure that our democracy survives into the future. In that, and if we fight today, like our grandparents fought, in World War II to defeat fascism. I'm not saying that there we have to have a military war over it, but I'm saying that if we fight for the tenets of democracy, then our grandchildren, our children and grandchildren are going to thank us for that. So that's my message today. And Tottenham Hotspur has a game coming up against Aston Villa, who have been much better as of late. So, guys, I just want everybody to go out there, make sure that they be safe, and talk to your neighbor. Okay, just talk to your neighbor and find things that you can agree on. Find things that make you both happy, and just support your fellow human being. Steve, your final words.
Coys, 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 coys.
And
Don't be an asshole. Mike, how about you?
I did just say be safe and talk to your neighbors. Also protect your mental health at all costs. And Nikki Winks, you got some final words for us?
Just love spending my evening with you guys. And Steve, I hope you feel better soon. And Tottenham till we die.
Tottenham till we die.
Or they kill
Or
me.
they kill us.
Or they kill us. That's right. And on that Tottenham Hotspur action, it's Frank-tastic.